Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Wookey. I'm the CEO of Blueprint, and I'd like to welcome you all. I think Blueprint brings two insights. One is an insight about business purpose, the idea that businesses can and should operate to a purpose that serves society for mutual benefit, where profit is the outcome, vital outcome, but an outcome and not the purpose. The second insight is around people, that human beings are fundamentally hardwired to seek meaning and the quality of relationships, and a desire to make a contribution.
We have a paradigm out there in the world that has something that leads to one of my partners who beautifully stood and drew a graph for me where they had purpose on one axis and profit on one axis. And so we've got to be careful with this purpose thing, because we are a business and we've got to make money. And I said, if that's the picture you're drawing, you've got the wrong picture. Because profit and purpose actually go hand in hand together. It's like a yin and a yang. They're not on separate bits of the axis, but the world that we're in sees them as separate. And that separation, I think, could be our downfall in business.
That idea of a kind of subversive view that what motivates people at work is something more interesting and more sophisticated than merely fear and greed is really what we're going to be talking about in this session.
From our own experience, we realize that people are motivated by a range of motives, everything from being purely self-interested to being quite selfless.
Well, I think the single biggest issue at the moment is what I call the cult of efficiency. It's extremely hard for a leader of a publicly quoted company to do anything other than try and chase hyper-efficiency at all times.
If you actually look at the structures, processes and tools that companies invent to actually get the efficiency, they have a separate track about how to deal with people. What is the human impact of the structures, processes and tools I put in place?
An organisation has an accountancy department that's accounting for every little thing to make it efficient. We don't account for people's creativity or their passion or their focus if we don't include every aspect of the person.
There is this danger where you could make things worse by talking about purpose, but actually treating people or doing the work within every level, which is where the real meat is. And that dissonance is going to demotivate tremendously people who feel that they can't make sense of this.
I do believe that business has the scale, the resource and the expertise to make a real difference with some of the big changes and challenges of the next 20 to 30 years.
Flood Re's purpose is to promote the availability and affordability of flood insurance to consumers. My team talk about getting the Flood Re bug, and the amount of discretionary effort that goes on in the team that I work in and the people that work for them is quite extraordinary. And it's because they're caught in the cause of doing this purposeful thing.
Blueprint gave us, if you like, the picture on the outside of the jigsaw box. And all of a sudden it made much more sense that the individual pieces, which we knew were right, we could then begin to see how they would fit together into this overarching picture. Blueprint is also low cost, brackets free, clearly culturally appealed to us.
The Blueprint addresses two parallel related disconnects. The first is between what a company says it does and what it actually does on the ground in reality. And then the second is between how a company thinks it deserves to be perceived and how it actually is perceived, which clearly arises from the first disconnect. That matters enormously for a global consumer brand like Vodafone. So we have refocused the company on 3 global transformational goals over a 10-year period, which are 3 areas where we can align core commercial objectives that are very important for us as a business with material positive social impact at scale.
The great thing that the Blueprint did, and we've sort of picked up on this a couple of times, is it connected me with a network of other people, other practitioners. But I think what Blueprint did for us was it asked us some different and unusual questions about the type of energy system that people would like for the future. What we were known for was financial performance and financial discipline. And when you're singularly focused on financial performance and financial discipline, you forget about all these other things.
If you've got a real purpose and society thinks that you have a purpose and it's genuine, that purpose, and it delivers benefits to society, that company will do well. That company will deliver sustainable profits. That company will recruit and retain the better people. But it has to be genuine, and it has to be long-term in its aspiration.
The German philosopher Schopenhauer, who had this thing about the theory of change. 3 stages of change. The first stage is ridicule. The second stage is violent opposition. And the third stage is everybody says it's obvious. So let's make this obvious. Thank you very much.